Hello team and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show we break down the latest and greatest Premier League action. Joining me on today's show, it's Joseph Tomlinson. How the devil was your weekend, Scholesy?
Unsurprisingly good, mate. Unsurprisingly good. And I know exactly what we're going to talk about on today's show.
That's right, we're going to talk about how Celtic dismantled Rangers 4-0 for 50 minutes. I can't wait. The whole weekend was a blur, actually. I had a smashing weekend. Absolutely top banana. Went to watch Brighton and Leicester in the flesh as well at the Amex. My seats were terrible, but won't complain. The vantage point was below pitch level, I'm convinced. So I didn't see an awful lot, but we'll get onto that in just a second. What else did you get up to then?
On Saturday, I went to the 100 final. Very good day out. Rather drunk there as well. And then Sunday, obviously, just a full day of Super Sunday action, culminating in an excellent Manchester United win.
Which we're about to get onto right now, but not before we explain the current studio/remote shooting situation. Did want to tell you lot at home that we do have aspirations to get in the studio more regularly. That will happen moving forward. We hope to keep live streaming, don't we, Joseph, so we can get people our reaction, our analysis straight after the games on a Sunday. That is the current plan. Couldn't happen this weekend just because of logistics, but watch out for more of that moving forward, because it was great to see people's positive reception to all of our deadline day stuff. So that will come thick and fast. Keep your peepers peeled. Let's move on then to this week's talking point, which is Eric, 12 points, mate. You've actually got some points on the board, climbing up the table. Manchester United's 3-1 victory at Old Trafford. It was the Red Devils' fourth W on the bounce, wasn't it? Propelling them up to 5th place. 2 points ahead of Chelsea, 3 points ahead of Liverpool. Now, Joe, goes without saying, you're happy with the result, but how happy were you with the performance?
Yeah, really happy with the performance. Really happy with the performance. I thought Manchester United played very well. Obviously, Arsenal dominated the ball, but I thought United were nice and controlled, out of possession, and did what they do best, which is hitting the transition really sharply. Some excellent individual performances as well. Yeah, again, I thought Malacia kind of set the tone with his energy and effort off the ball. Erickson, outstanding in midfield. And I think we need to put a few props quietly on Scott McTominay, who's had a really good couple of weeks. Played really well against Leicester, played really well yesterday against Arsenal as well, and Anthony got his debut goal, so really pleased with the performance. I have to say, I do want to give some credit to Arsenal. I thought they were excellent throughout. You can see exactly what Arteta's trying to do, and that was really a team that are 3 years into a project versus a team that are, 6 games into a project, still figuring it out and getting early building blocks in position and basically utilising the best of what they've got, which is to attack on the transition. But I thought Erik ten Hag got his substitute spot on, and Arteta got his horribly wrong, which is effectively where the game was won for me.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit on quite a few big talking points there. Let's have a look at some of them in a little bit more depth then, starting with Christian Erickson, who I thought was at the heart of everything that Manchester United did really well in this game, pulling the strings in that sort of free 8 position, not least his presence at the heart of midfield, enabling Bruno Fernandes to do more damage further up the pitch where he excels. But yeah, let's have a look at the Danes' numbers then. 41 passes complete as a team high, 3 chances created, also a team high. Put up 3 tackles, 2 blocks, a dribble, had a shot for good measure. Joe, was he the best player on the pitch for you in that 90?
Ooh, I think Gabriel Jesus was the best player on the pitch. He was incredible in that first sort of 65 minutes. So strong. I thought the battle against him and Varane was really interesting, because it almost felt like an Arsenal tactic to not engage with Lisandro Martinez in the one-on-one and instead choose to use Gabriel Jesus up against Rafa Varane in the 1v1, which was really interesting to watch. But I thought on the ball, Christian Eriksen was probably the difference between the two sides. His ability to split the lines with incisive passes and effectively expose Lokonga's defensive positioning was second to none. You think of the first and the second goal, both coming from line-splitting balls from Christian Eriksen, with Lokonga slightly in the wrong role. I think that was effectively the key to the midfield battle, and they couldn't really cope with it, Arsenal. It was quite naive to play that line, I thought, which was a little bit all over the place. by the way, but we're going to come on to that in a little bit, I'm sure. But overall, yeah, I think Erickson, stunningly good performance in midfield.
Well, he almost lost the battle early doors, didn't he? When he lost the ball to Martin Ødegaard. But of course, Martinez's goal eventually chalked off for a foul. Let's hear what the Arsenal captain had to think about that before I come to you, Joe, for your opinion.
Of course, you had the ball in the net in the first half. The goal was disallowed after VAR, asked the referee to take a look at it for a foul by you on Christian Erickson. What's your view of it?
Yeah, it's, in my opinion, it's never a foul. I think the referee also sees it and he says play on. It's a soft challenge, you know, and for VAR to come in needs to be clear and obvious. They've said it a lot of times, and yeah, for me it's very, very soft. On the camera you can always make it look a little bit worse, but for me that was never a foul, and the referee said play on. I think he saw it on the pitch, so yeah, it's frustrating.
Right, mate, do you think, like Ødegaard said then, it was soft? Would you have been annoyed if you were an Arsenal fan in that situation?
No, I thought it was a foul. I thought it was a foul by Martin Ødegaard. I thought the referees this weekend had an absolute fest across the league, and VAR was a disaster. But I thought that one was a foul by Ødegaard. I think he makes contact with his knee and pulled in. He made a mistake in the moment, so VAR rightfully overruled it. I didn't really have a problem with that goal, but maybe that's my Manchester United bias shining through. I can see the comments right now. Tingling away, fizzing away.
No, as someone that's capable of being a little bit more objective in these situations then, as a Celtic fan, I also thought it was a foul. I didn't see what all the hoi polloi was about, to be perfectly frank, but there we go. I mean, Mikel Arteta definitely thought it was a goal, and he definitely thought his team were the better side throughout the 90, didn't he? And this is what he had to say post-match.
Really disappointed to lose the game, especially after what happened throughout 95 minutes. We had some big periods we were totally dominant, and the moments that we were in total control, and not only that, dominating, creating chance after chance, we didn't close the game. And in any moment, you know, when they have open spaces, they're going to hurt you.
But before we discuss our thoughts on Arsenal and whether we think Arteta has a point, I just want to counter that with Roy Keane's opinion on Arteta's post-match.
Listen, I'm fed up with all their excuses anyway, son. No, I'm serious. Arteta gets interviewed after the game. Listen, he's a sore loser. Listen, like us all, he's got to give a little bit of credit to Man United. He never does. Every time he loses a game, I listen to him. It's about the opposite, what they didn't do properly, or the officials. Stop making excuses. You lost the game 3-1. You done okay. Take your plaudits, but give me the points any day of the week.
So 2 questions then, Tomlinson. 1, do you think Arsenal were the better side? And 2, do you think Arteta is a sore loser, like Roy Keane says?
I think every top professional is effectively a sore loser because the competitive nature is just so high. So partly, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I also think that Arsenal were better on the ball, but I thought United were a lot better off the ball. I thought although Arsenal dominated possession, United were able to screen them really effectively. They didn't cause them too many problems. You know, even when you look at the shots on target, which isn't the most amazing metric, it was quite comfortable into Manchester United's favour. I don't really remember David De Gea having to make too many exceptional saves. And United was so lethal off the ball with their quick transition game that that's effectively where it was won. So, yes, they were better on the ball. Yes, they dominated. I agree with Mikel Arteta there. They played some lovely football. But a lot of it was in front of United's backline, effectively where United wanted them to play. So it was very close, and I still believe it came down to the substitutions that won Manchester United the game. When Fred came on, played more inverted for Jadon Sancho, that was a huge moment. And then when we saw Mikel Arteta make that mad 3-sub change where Martinelli was playing at left back, what was going on with 20 minutes to play? They just went to like the whole formation system fell apart when it was so dominant on the ball before that.
Yeah, I feel like he played into Erik ten Hag's hands in that situation, didn't he? And you did finish the game in stronger fashion as a result. Now, a month ago, you and many Manchester United fans were anticipating a mid-table finish after a dreadful start to your Premier League campaign. But now, are you slowly starting to feel that Ten Hag can drag this group of players to a top 4 finish, or is that still beyond them, do you think?
Still beyond them for me. Still beyond them. I think Arsenal are going to be a better team across the course of the season. I think Tottenham and Chelsea look pretty strong as well. So I'm going to stick with my original pre-season prediction of 6th. However, there are clear improvements being made to individuals within this team. You know, Diogo Dalot looks a totally different player to the player we've seen at Manchester United before. And I mentioned him earlier, I'm just going to, Scott McTominay keeping Casemiro out the side, playing really well. I don't think that's going to continue for the whole season, because I think when United play some of the smaller teams, Casemiro is going to be used to stop counter-attacks and they can play a little bit higher. But, hats off to Eric Ten Hag, because the culture shift that he's been in charge of over the last couple of weeks has been magnificent.
Yeah, and in his words, this is how he's enabled it.
Eric, just developing Roy's point, I mean, he reflected on the Brentford game when Gary Neville talked about it being as the new low for Manchester United. The players looked shot at that point. The body language was not good. How have you put that confidence into them so quickly that they look such different players now, just 4 games on?
That's a process. But you have to live every day high standards, and that is my demand, my coaches' demands, and I think also the players in our team has that demand. We have already many players in the team who win a lot of trophies, and they have to bring that in the dressing room. Every day, get the best out of you, and demand it from each other, and then we will even more improve.
Before we move on to our winner and loser then, Joseph, of course, both of these sides have Europa League fixtures coming up. What kind of team do you think Eric Ten Hag is going to put out in the Europa League this season?
Strong one. I think a strong one. Yeah, I think Europa League might be Manchester United's best opportunity to qualify for the Champions League next season. I expect him to go really strong, because he's got to create a team that's forming patterns and partnerships on the pitch, and the best way to do that is by getting minutes and game time. So I'm sure there'll be some changes, but I still expect a very, very strong team midweek against Sociedad.
Interesting. I actually anticipated a lot of rotation, but now that you've said that, it does make a lot of sense, doesn't it? With all these relationships over the pitch in their infancy, he can use the extra time in the Europa League to flesh them out. Nice. Right, let's move on to our winners then. And it is Brentford, who leapfrog Leeds into 8th place in the Premier League standings after their 2nd win of the season at home against the Whites. They've actually lost 1 game this campaign. And expected points ranks them as high as 6th. So, Brentford, who we put forward as our surprise package in Sunday Fives, really come into the fore. Joe, who impressed you in this game? Although I have an inkling as to who you might say.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to talk about him, Ivan Toney, just going from strength to strength in the Premier League. And now a hat-trick and an awesome one. At that, the free kick reminded me of Dimitri Payet. It was such a beautiful strike of the ball. But my favourite goal of his was actually the 3rd goal. I think when he picks the ball up, a lot of strikers, a lot of players would have just shot instinctively to take the extra 2 touches. And then that beautiful, delicate, little weighted finish is so lovely. He is starting to look like a really high caliber striker that could potentially do it at a team that is playing in Europe. So it's going to be very interesting to see how long Brentford can keep hold of an asset like Ivan Toney, because I'm sure there will be teams sniffing about. Also want to put a few props to Ben Mee, who's come and slotted into this side like he's been there for years under Thomas Frank. I think it was 9 tackles and interceptions on the weekend, proving that he wasn't just sort of this crash bang wallop Burnley player either, that he can play in a slightly more cultured system. So overall, Brentford look extremely exciting, but we're not surprised, are we? Because Thomas Frank is one of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah, a great coach and a great start to the season from Ivan Toney. That is now 7 goals and assists in 6 starts, following up that very promising first campaign where I think he registered 17 goals and assists. 5 of those goals being penalties. So I'd like to see a few more goals from open play before a big move manifests. But yeah, what a start to the season. But on the flip side, Leeds is defending absolutely woeful. I mean, they shipped 17 shots in this match, and if that was their season average, it'd put them 2nd bottom, just behind Nottingham Forest. The season average, for some reference now, is 12.8. But yeah, Robin Koch flicking it on from Buemo. Llorente trying to do that Cruyff turn before being robbed by Visser. Cody Drammer, I don't think looked great at right back, but he is young. Not got an awful lot of minutes under his belt. And Pascal Strike still playing out of position in that left back role. Yeah, so a little bit out of sorts, but they've had an okay start to the season, haven't they? Joe, what would be a good campaign for both of these clubs then? Just looking forward.
Yeah, I think Brentford, anything above 13th would be an outstanding campaign. If they can get into the top half, that will be an absolutely elite level campaign. I think for Leeds, having stayed up on effectively the final day last season, I'd like to see just more progression in Jesse Marsch's style of play, a move away from Marcelo Bielsa and into this Jesse Marsch high pressing system, and anything around that sort of 15th place with the progression in the system, as I say, with these new faces, I think would also be a success. So these two teams don't have to massively rip up any trees, but I think in their own right, they're actually really exciting projects to watch this season.
Yeah, they might not rip up any trees, but I think he wanted to rip the fourth official's head off in this fixture, didn't he, Jesse Marsch?
Yeah.
Ended up getting sent off. That was one of the big sort of flashpoints, and it's safe to say he wasn't happy after the game with the explanation that he received.
I was told by the referee committee and by the league in our managers meeting before the season started that the threshold for penalties was going to go up. So that was not, for me, represented by that decision. Then in an action where I think Crescencio Somerville is actually more of an egregious foul and it doesn't even get looked at for VAR, I'm clearly dissatisfied. So I got to figure out how to have discussions with the league or with referees or something to help understand, how some decisions get made.
On to our losers then, to round off the show, and it is Leicester City. The Foxes remain rooted to the bottom of the Premier League after a 5th straight defeat, and Roy Keane had this to say.
No commitment, no desire. Brendan's in trouble with that performance to the second half. The Leicester players, nowhere near good enough. Gave up the fight. Shocking.
So, Joseph, do you agree that Brendan Rodgers is in big trouble after a performance like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. The players, that performance was an absolute disgrace against Brighton. Quite frankly, it really was a disgrace. However, he does have on his side Brendan Rodgers. He's earning quite a chunky wage. He's on a long old contract. We know Leicester have much publicised financial issues. It's not going to be cheap to sack Brendan Rodgers at this stage of the season. So I'm sure Leicester will be reticent to get rid and part ways, but it's all going wrong at Leicester, isn't it? It feels like a situation that needs a change, and I still believe Brendan Rodgers is a really good coach. There are huge problems at the back for Leicester. When I was watching them against Brighton, Daniel Amati, Wilfred and Ndidi is just awful to watch, just getting picked apart by Brighton when Trossard does Ndidi on the line and then runs about 8 yards to get round him and he still fouls him. The Ndidi of a couple of seasons ago was not getting done like that. I don't know what on earth has gone on with him, but they just look so bad. James Maddison slumped on the end at the end of the match, kind of summed it all up for me.
Well, I think the Trossard goal was indicative of how bad their defending has been at the moment, when Pascal Gross's toe poke just around the corner just completely bamboozles James Justin, and all of a sudden he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and Danny Ward not really seizing his opportunity to convince people that he's a number one at current, although I do feel for him he is playing in front of a very porous defence. But Ndidi's positioning, I mean, you mentioned Ndidi a couple of seasons ago there, his positioning at centre-half has never been great because he's not a centre-half, and Leicester do have Seunku, who wasn't in the squad this week. I think they're trying to engineer a move out of the club for him, aren't they? There have been rumours that Galatasaray are interested. The Turkish window not closed as of yet. So, yeah, I mean, an untimely fallout with Seunku, let's say. But I just thought they were terrible. The whole back four, Luke Thomas at left back, his second league game of the campaign, ending with an own goal. Daniel Amati having to come on, just really, really bad stuff. But let's talk a little bit about Brighton, because there were some standout performances for Graham Potter, wasn't there, with McAllister being one of them. Had that wonder goal, tenuously disallowed, but then responded by scoring a penalty and a free kick, powering his team up to 4th. I mean, just how far do you think Brighton can go this season? Because I think last campaign, when Everton started really well and they were 4th, 7-8 games in, and we said there's an outside chance here that they could make a charge for Champions League football. Do you put Everton in that same? I mean, do you put Brighton in that same bracket this season as dark horses for a top 6 finish? Let's not say Champions League. Let's say European football.
Yeah, I think Champions League's too far, but there's absolutely no reason they can't do what West Ham and Leicester have done over the last couple of seasons and upset the top 6 apple cart. They are so well coached. Like Graham Potter, I'm fairly convinced is like close to being the 5th best coach in the league at this stage, given some of the assets that he's got at his disposal and what they're currently doing. The midfield looks awesome. I just think that in every sort of role, whoever plays, wherever they play, looks fantastic. And I just want to shout out Pascal Gross again, who just has been one of the best players in the entire division so far this season and continues to cause utter havoc in and around the boxes of opposition sides. So Graham Potter, stunningly good stuff. And I see no reason that Brighton can't finish like 7th, push for a Conference League spot.
Yeah, I was impressed with their sort of versatility in this game as well, because obviously we've seen in seasons gone by, Graham Potter's men pass teams to death, with Adam Lallana in there pulling the strings, but it was a slightly different side that dismantled Leicester, and Mwepu and Caicedo just running all over Tielemans and James Maddison in that midfield. It just looked like a physical mismatch, and Caicedo, the way he's taken to the division as well, he deserves an awful lot of credit. His stock is very high right now, isn't it? But yeah, that's all we have time for this week. I was going to ask you for a moment of the week, Joseph, but I feel like it's probably going to come from the Arsenal versus Manchester United game, isn't it? What was your standout moment from that then? Was it Rashford, regaining some form? Was it Anthony scoring on his debut? What was it? If you had to pick one thing.
Yeah, probably the Anthony debut goal, just because it's a lovely moment when a player scores in his debut. And then there was a bit of controversy about the badge kissing. There's a bit of controversy about the badge kissing, which I have absolutely no issue with. I have no issue with a player, when he first joins, kissing the badge, just because it does get the crowd going. Like, I saw a lot of people battering him for that. What's wrong with it? He's enjoying his moment.
I got to admit, I did cringe a little bit in the pub, but I can see why the fans would lap it up. Our moment of the week then, some badge kissing. I love it. And have we got anything to plug across Football Daily or Football Daily?
Yeah, if you haven't already, go and watch The Come Up and go and watch Jermaine Defoe's Unfiltered. Not enough views on that because it is a good video, Sam, on the second.
Yeah, it deserves it better. All right, like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll see you next week on Winners and Losers. Bye-bye.